are we as a society going to stop calling it X, formerly known as Twitter, and just go back to referring to it as Twitter? The phrasing X, formerly known as Twitter, is often used humorously or sarcastically to highlight changes or controversies related to the platform. The frequency of this phrase's usage may vary based on ongoing developments or trends. As for when society might revert to simply calling it Twitter without the additional commentary, it largely depends on the stability and public perception of the platform in the future. I don't know anyone who says X. It's like a whole infrastructure that's been built over years with words that have become part of everyday talk: tweets, retweets. I think Elon Musk just felt like he was some all-powerful god and decided to play around with his toys, fulfilling his long-time dream to make XCOM great again. Twitter, it will always be in my heart. The only people I've ever seen calling it X are the media, because they use registered names for companies, and the genius who thought it'd be a great idea to take an internationally recognized brand and swap it out for something that he thinks sounds edgy and cool but really just sounds like a super sketchy porn site that'll steal your identity. I call it Zero, where the X is pronounced like you do with the name Chavi. But I will dead name this company as long as the CEO keeps dead naming his trans daughter. Can't be so outwardly against respecting new names and change in pronouns and expect me to respect the new company name. Yeah, most of us are still calling it Twitter. Call it what you want, doesn't mean I'm not gonna hurt a website's feelings by not calling it X, and given how Musk feels about people's choices and names, I care even less if it hurts his to call a website something else. I mean, it's not called Twitter, it's called X. I know nobody here likes Elon, but whether you like it or not, he bought Twitter and changed the name to X. Imagine someone changing their name, and you keep calling them the wrong name on purpose because you don't like them. I love that when it comes up in the news, it is referred to as known as Twitter. Elon is like, I'm a billionaire, god damn it, do my bidding, and the public is like, fuck off, Emerald Boy. I still have never heard anyone refer to it as X, unless they state X, formerly known as Twitter. Habits die hard. I still call my truck a Dodge, but that's no longer proper either. Don't you think we are more likely to reach a point where it ceases to exist or become so irrelevant that no one refers to it rather than calls it X, or it goes back to Twitter? I think it will go back to being known as only Twitter once Elon finally succeeds at destroying it completely and people are referring to it in the past tense. Who TF calls it X? Who even uses Twitter anymore? It's essentially an RSS feed for me and always has been. I've never known anyone who actually uses it socially. Literally no one calls it X except media outlets because they're forced to call a company by their actual name, and even then they say formerly Twitter. Pretty soon this question will be irrelevant as that website has rapidly devolved into one massive Breitbart Daily Caller common thread. Maybe when we realize that Twitter isn't going anywhere and neither is the need to constantly rename things? Just a thought, man shrugging. It's not Twitter. Twitter is dead. It's called Zitter, now pronounced shitter, and I refuse to call it anything else. I've never not called it Twitter and only seen weird right-wing or Elon Musk fanboys that insist on calling it X. X was really just the worst branding choice. People use X to mean lots of things, and they are rarely positive. I like how the call retweets reposts, which is something people usually view as negative, at least on Reddit. We call it Zitter, pronounced shitter, in the posts, are called excretions. We are not sophisticated people. How long was Prince known as the artist formerly known as Prince after he changed his name to a symbol? Hopefully you all stop referring to it at all. Why is anyone still on that piece of garbage? Literally nobody calls it X, and by nobody I really do mean nobody. It's Twitter still. Compromise. How about we stop referring to it as anything, and forget about it forever? For me to stop calling it X, I would have had to start calling it X in the first place. Yo Elon, the 90s called. They want their obsession with edgy X brand of nonsense back. X is BS. Also gonna call my car Z now. Call my neighbor I now. Call my socks Fs now. I don't use it, but I have never not referred to it as anything other than Twitter. It's Zitter, actually pronounced the same way President Xi's name is pronounced. It will be called Twitter, formerly known as X, formerly known as Twitter. Or, hear me out. It just goes away and we don't have to discuss it at all. When it finally goes under and we remember it as Twitter, which must guild. I didn't even use Twitter when it was called Twitter, and I won't start now. Once the company goes under and servers shut down, I'll start calling it X. I never stopped calling it Twitter. I also still call it Showbiz Pizza. It'll go under before it is regularly referred to as X by most people. I've never heard anyone call Twitter X. Officially when Elon decides, I'll never call it X. I stay classy, I am old, yeah, I'm allowed to do so. Who actually uses that garbage besides celebrities and politicians? No real person calls it X. You need a Turing test? There you go. It's not X. It's crossed out because it's currently been deleted. I have yet to meet a single person role that calls it X. Right before we start calling it who gives a shit, does that even exist anymore? I thought it was dead.